Evening. I would like to welcome you to our Beachside Chat, Optimal Optics Tech Tools for Social Media by the City of Los Angeles's Department of Cannabis Regulation. I am Dr. Delara Uscoop of the Los Angeles Metropolitan Churches. Welcome to this Beachside Chat sponsored by the City of Los Angeles Department of Cannabis Regulation, Business Licensing and Compliance, BLC Assistance Program. BLC programming is designed to assist social equity applicants and licensees in the City of Los Angeles with obtaining a commercial cannabis license and operating a successful cannabis business. Our Beachside Chat is designed to be a dialogue between the LAM team and our subject matter experts to bring you cutting-edge information to support your cannabis business. At this time, I'm delighted and excited to introduce our co-moderator for the evening, Mr. Brad Rowe.
Well, thank you, Dr. D. I usually only get delighted, not delighted, and excited, so this is a very special night. Hello, everyone. As Dr. D said, my name is Brad Rowe. I've been working with LA Metro Churches. We've been building curriculum, content development, and digital events like this one for social equity licensees, applicants, and job seekers like yourselves. I teach cannabis policy at the UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs. I've been spending the last decade working with cities and states on cannabis licensing, taxation, regulation, and compliance. So I'm glad to be here with everyone this evening. Speaking of compliance, before we get started, let me take a moment to review some of the housekeeping rules. Please note the webinar is being recorded and can be viewed after the editing process on DCR's learning management system for social equity individuals, for licensees and applicants. You will be muted with your cameras off for the duration of the webinar. This means your camera and audio functions are not going to be available to you during the session. However, you'll be able to see and hear all the panelists. There's an open chat box at the bottom where you can interact with one another for networking or comment on the information, on the conversation. But please use your caution when sharing personal information in a public forum like this, and keep your questions focused on tonight's topic. And please ask questions about tonight's subject matter in the Q&A box. We're gathering and responding to your questions throughout the presentation. We'll have a Q&A session where you will also get responses in the last 15, 20 minutes of tonight's event. You are encouraged to utilize that box. If you use the Q&A box for questions, everyone will be able to see them as a reminder. And finally, please note that tonight's content was not created by the Department of Cannabis Regulation or the City of Los Angeles and is for informational purposes only. The information is subject to change and does not replace or supersede the Los Angeles Municipal Code, nor constitute legal advice. If you have specific questions outside of tonight's topic, please call 213-978-0738 during business hours. That's Monday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. to speak to a DCR representative. And with that, I'll just stop boring you right there. I'm going to pass you back over to Dr. D.
Thank you so much, Brad. At this time, I am pleased to introduce our evening's subject matter experts. And panelists, please pardon our abbreviation of everyone's bios. At this time, I would like to introduce Scott Imalfarb of the Fresh Content Society. He is the founder and CEO. Scott is the founder and CEO of Fresh Content Society, an award-winning social media agency. Scott has over 14 years of experience leading, designing, managing, and growing social media communities for some of the world's leading brands. Scott has developed content and campaigns that have gone viral and generated national media attention on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Scott's deep understanding of social media management makes him one of the best social media professionals in the industry. We are so excited to have you this evening, Scott.
Yes, thank you, Dr. D.
And next, I would like to introduce Dr. Barrett Matthews, CEO of Media Boss Pro and E2E Systems. Dr. Barrett Matthews, known as the Media Boss, is an authority on execution, productivity, and media. Barrett has shared his unique brand of productivity genius with organizations worldwide. Dr. Matthews is author of Why Didn't You Get It Done? 50 Shades of Wealth, and a call to action, which he has used to help elevate the productivity of the business people that he works with. He has a strong background in media, working in radio, print, and television with a stint at CBS Sports, plus hosting and producing podcasts, including the Black CEO Morning Show, Lunch and Learn with Chris and Barrett, and Revenue Radio, as well as being a dynamic guest on the 30-Minute Hour, the Linda Forstick Show, and the Power Podcast with Dr. George C. Fraser, to name a few. Dr. Matthews was recognized as a World Civility Ambassador in 2020 by iChange Nations and as the Distinguished Leader for 2019, as well as other honors. In 2021, Dr. Matthews was named a Royal Liaison to the Development King in Ghana, where he will introduce his Media Monarch program. Always an engaging podcast guest, Dr. Barrett Matthews is committed to showing executives how to start and grow any business productively by utilizing media. Dr. Matthews is on a mission to bring back civility to global media with his Media Monarch initiative, and he believes we should all make them hear your voice. Welcome, Dr. Matthews.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate it.
Great, Scott and Barrett, nice to have you here. Now I'm going to introduce Christina Wong from Fruit and Flower Company. She's a cannabis, food, drink, and travel writer, creator, and baker in Los Angeles, California. She is founder and CEO of Fruit and Flower Company and the host of Fruit and Flower Unfurled, a newsletter and podcast for culinary cannabis enthusiasts. Additionally, she is co-host of Mogu Magu, an AAPI culture, food, and cannabis collective, and partner and culinary editor of The Clever Root, a food lover's guide to modern cannabis. Her work has been featured in Thrillist, High Times, Cherry Bomb, Canna Curious, and Kitchen Toke magazines. Welcome, Christina. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Hey, everybody.
Right on. And next up, we have Savvy Henderson. She is CEO of Savvy Business Accelerator. Savvy is seasoned with over 2 decades of experience strategizing innovative marketing and digital experiences for startups to large corporations. She has worked with renowned brands such as BET, GM, Pantene, Clairol, Olay, and more. Henderson has partnered with teams to win over $4 million in government contracts. Holy cow. Savvy Business Accelerator, digital marketing agency, B2B, specializes in content marketing, digital media, and content development. Her clients range from celebrities, musicians, and athletes to tech startups, small businesses, and nonprofits. The agency has extensive experience with overall marketing strategy, email marketing, content production, brand development, and business development. Welcome, Savvy. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
All right, excellent. Dr. D, can you kick us off?
Yes, let's get started. Tonight is all about social media. So we want to start with this question. What are 3 things social equity applicants and licensees need to know about using social media for their cannabis businesses? Let us know. What are 3 things we need to know? And I would love to hear from Christina.
All right. So the 3 things you need to know. So number 1, even though your cannabis business is legal here in Los Angeles, in California, and technically not legal federally and globally not. So even though you think we're legal, we're not. And so on social media, it's really challenging because social media speaks to a global audience. So the rules are constantly changing, and it can be an incredible tool, but it can also be really tricky to navigate. So you want to know your rules. The second thing you want to know is be careful what you post. You cannot sell on social media because it's cannabis. So you have to be careful with what you post, what you don't post. On Instagram, on TikTok, they have AI now that scans everything and can flag your account and take it down. So I am going to tell you all the things you should know before you post. And the third thing you need to know is think about, what are you trying to accomplish? What are you using social media for? Is it for foot traffic to get people to come into your shop? Is it for overall education about the plant, about cannabis? Is it education and brand awareness about what your brand is? And if you're looking to target hyper local, that's going to be a different strategy than if you're reaching a national audience with like a national CBD product. So those are like the top 3 things and the big takeaways for today.
Great. Thank you so much for starting us off with that question and what we need to know. Christina, I want to kind of follow up a little bit on what you just talked about. In one of our prior Beachside chats, we learned that social media must direct users, and you were just talking about this. You have to direct users to engage or to act, whether that's to go into the store, to create an online order, or to sell, even though you can't directly sell on that social media platform. So we understand the nuance of that. So we understand that the outcome has to be action oriented. So what are the steps before that that our owner applicants, licensees should kind of take before that piece of directing the end user to act? Should they be thinking about audience size, impressions, engagements? So I just want to kind of follow up on that last question. What is the first thing they should do when when our applicants and licensees are thinking about the purpose of their social media account, and whether it's to drive foot traffic, expand the brand, get more engagements, et cetera? Can you kind of talk us through what those
Yeah,
look
I
like?
think number one, like I said, be careful and know what you can and you can't say and post on social media, depending on the social media channel. And I'll start with Instagram, just because that's the biggest one. You want to go with like the bigger channels where your audience is going to be and where you can find them. You could focus on these smaller, like cannabis safe, cannabis only channels, but you're not going to be reaching your target audience. That's really limited. Like, for example, Burner from Cookies did Social Club. Honestly, it's not a great place to be. But on Instagram, I would say that's kind of the channel right now where you have the most leeway. They're the most flexible, but you still have to be very careful. So you'll see on a lot of the brand pages, they'll put their license, they'll say nothing for sale, 21 plus, and everything else. And that kind of stuff can get your account flagged. So I would say choose your social media handles and don't use the words cannabis, weed, ganja, marijuana, whatever else you want to call it. Don't use that. I had one of my posts get taken down because I used too many broccoli emojis. So the social media channels are getting very savvy to the nicknames and the emojis and the things that we're using to hide things. So even when I'm posting photos of product, I cover the labels, or I cover cannabis. I'll scratch them out on still posts. I kind of draw lines through things. So it's like, this is the hardest part of doing cannabis social media, is that you have a product, you're trying to drive end users to get them to come into your store and buy your product, but you can't say that you have a product to sell, and you can't overtly say that. So we have to get creative. And what a lot of brands do that are really smart is that maybe they're highlighting what they do for the community. It's just education only. They highlight the employees that maybe work there, or events. There's a place in Oakland that does a really fantastic job, and they host all different events and PADs, and they highlight that instead. So you can't create links out to buy. That's definitely a no-no. So you have to be careful. And yes, you can think about impressions, engagement, and audience size and all of that. But number one, before you even get there, just know what is and is not allowed. And if you're reading the rules and the fine print on all of these social channels, it's very vague. It won't tell you anything. Like, even today, I just saw that Twitch used to be known as a very cannabis friendly platform. And so if you're not familiar, Twitch is very popular for gaming. The second most popular channel it's used for is for cooking and food content. So a lot of cannabis creators go there to stream content, share information, and in the past, it's been cannabis friendly. Today, they just dropped a notice saying that it's not allowed anymore, and now they're backtracking. Rules change constantly. Things that were allowed on Instagram are no longer allowed. New technology comes out. Don't even try on TikTok, I would say. TikTok has potential, but because their audience is mostly teenagers and younger, same with Snapchat, that's not going to be a safe place for cannabis. Twitter is safe, but are you going to reach your audience there? So you have to think about, who is your audience? Who are you trying to reach? And what social media channels are they already living on? So you have to know what your target audience is and go find them there.
Thank you so much for that answer. I would love to hear from Scott, Savvy. How do we increase audience size, impressions, engagements? Should folks be, following other accounts? Should they be on social an hour a day?
Mhm.
What are the rules? How do we increase those impressions and engagements?
I'll jump in here quick and then Savvy and Baird maybe want to add to it. But Christina brought up a lot of good points. And there's so much to talk about as it relates to content on different social platforms. Probably month worth of these types of chats. So it's impossible to get through all of it, but I thought she brought up a lot of valid points. And we deal with a lot of platform policy violation issues with some of the clients that we work with. And we have different techniques to be able to combat that. But um, just want to reiterate things, Christina said are very spot on. In terms of increasing some of those KPIs like impressions and engagements, two easy things that tactically, right, people can do. One is community engagement, right? Spend a couple hours a day if you could, liking, commenting, following strategic accounts that you want to build partnerships and relationships with. So, it could be the donut shop that's right next to you, or it could be the municipality, or it could be, certain key influencers that you're trying to build relationships with. And then also, right, key customers, right, like super users and brand ambassadors that support you that you can pull user generated content from. So spending more time building community that's the social and social media, right? And that should increase your engagement just because you're building community with other people. It's, if I like Barrett's post, the chances of Barrett liking my post are pretty high. But you can't do the post and pray strategy. Post and pray, people are going to like it. The second thing to help increase impressions and reach is Reels, right? And taking advantage of different portals within different platforms that allow you to generate that sort of organic reach. And Reels happens to be that place. And yeah, most platforms don't even allow cannabis brands on them, right? But there's a huge community on different platforms for cannabis. So you just got to be very strategic in how you approach, like showing flowers a red flag, like showing concentrate red flag, showing products big red flag. So if you're a cannabis social media marketer, you have to work 10 times harder to be able to figure out how to break through the algorithm, in addition to going against the grain of these platforms, quote unquote, shadow banning you, even though they claim they don't shadow ban you. But if you can't go to your search bar on Instagram and type in your brand's, name and it doesn't pop up, that's the definition of being shadow banned. So community engagement and also leveraging reels and other, explore for you pages that show content to people will help or increase your organic impressions and reach.
Very good. I'd love to follow up on a couple of these points. Savvy, can you help me out just for starters? And then I'd also love to hear from Barrett and maybe get back to you, Scott, on that one. First of all, just love Post and Pray. That's fabulous. I'm getting an idea here of the mentality, sort of using positive verbs of being compliant, social media compliance. Savvy, can you speak a little bit to what that mentality is? And then maybe you could kick us off on what are some of the penalties for non-compliance, maybe coming from government or business. And Scott just brought up shadow banning and some of the other things they do. But what does it look like from your perspective?
So social media compliance is really following the guidelines that each platform sets. And that's the thing, because each platform has their own set of guidelines. And then you also have your local and city and some state regulations that you must follow, and you have to follow them on every scale. So you can't do one and then skip the other one. You always have to keep those in mind. A lot of people will try to, just I don't know what the policy is, but what I'm saying is get familiar with the policy. Make it a point to have that part of your best practices to understand what the policy is. And you have to stay updated, like Christina mentioned, because things change. I do feel like eventually they may start allowing it, but if you are non-compliant, right? Some people believe that they are not enforcing it because they see people who are clearly not in the guidelines. It doesn't mean that they aren't enforcing it. Yes, they're skating at this moment, but they can be reported at any moment. Their whole account can be lost. You lose the engagement, the shares, the links, all of that work you put into it already to break through the algorithm. You've lost it all. Your account can not only be shadow banned, it can be banned completely. You can lose well, most people won't have an ad account anyway, but if you had an ad account, you would lose everything, especially with Meta. They're gonna ban you on both platforms. They're not just gonna do one. And some people will start over, just change their name a little bit and do the same thing. But also that's kind of deception. So it can taint the way your brand looks to your customer. You know, you want to be trustworthy brand so that people can be loyal and work with you. And part of that is being compliant. So I think that I looked at the government and a lot of them, because it's in the government, it's just illegal. Like it's because it's not all, you know, it's not the whole country, only state by state. So right now, you could, you know, you might get, I don't know if they do sanctions because it's by state by state, but right now that you can get your accounts banned. So you don't want to do that.
Okay. Wow, that's really helpful. Thanks. And Barrett, I know we're going to get into a little more on podcasts later, but can you, since we're talking about compliance,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about what compliance and what are some of the guidelines for hosting podcasts? And I'm assuming including conversation about cannabis and maybe some images. I'm not sure. How does that work?
Yeah, Brett, that's a totally different world, actually. There are you can do a podcast and use the word cannabis in there. I mean, the only thing you have to do is it's the same thing that everyone's been talking about. You can't go in there selling it. I mean, you can't go in there stating that you know some facts about health when you don't. You can't misrepresent yourself on it. You can't do the things on there that you can't do on social media. It's just that you can say the word. There are podcasts with the name cannabis in it. I mean, you can actually have it in your graphic, the picture of it. But the thing is just that you can't go on there misrepresenting yourselves because I mean, you can get arrested for these things. I mean, it's really that simple. I mean, you're broadcasting something not just nationally, but internationally. So you've got to be very, very careful. And I'm glad that we're having this discussion because it's something that people really need to take seriously. Just because it's legal in your state does not mean you can just go, just go as hard as you can without any regulation. You have to make sure, as Savvy said, you have to make sure that you check with your state, make sure you check with your area and with the government and so forth, because you will get in trouble. They will. I need you to understand something. There are people, there are quote unquote powers that be that are looking for someone to mess up. They are literally getting paid to find people that mess up in these areas. And if they find one, they're going to find more. And as she alluded to about you doing something deceptive and coming back with a different name. Well, here's the thing. Meta notices that too. It's not just your clients. Meta notices that you're doing something deceptive. And believe me, that will not bode well for you. And another thing I wanted to mention, I think Christina mentioned this as well about your brand. Some of you have companies dealing with cannabis. And yes, you have done your due diligence. You have made sure you stayed in compliance, but you have employees that have social media accounts too. They represent your brand. So whether it's in social media, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a Roku channel, whatever, they are still representing your brand. So you have to make sure that all your I's are dotted, all your T's are crossed. Otherwise, you'll be shut down in a heartbeat.
I hear you. And so just to clarify, as far as and by the way, when you're doing your podcast, you're live. So you
Well,
got sometimes not. You got to really know what you're ready to say and to not say going in, so the right thing doesn't slip out. Or if you have a guest who's kind of steering in a direction you want to avoid, you got to be a little careful with that. So just make sure we're not making any claims about medical properties of cannabis and other things that you can't back up. That's kind of the headline on that one, right?
Right, and kind of and alluding to what you just said there, just like your social media, in a podcast, prepare in advance for it. Make sure, do your due diligence, do your homework, do your research. So go and talk to your guests beforehand if you have guests on there. So that way you know what you're going to go into, you know what route you're going to take. This is not one of those, types of interviews where you want to surprise them with a question that throws them off. Because that can get everybody in trouble. You want to make sure that you're going in with the purpose of educating the public, informing them, engaging with people, but make sure that you are in compliance, because this is not anything to be played with. I mean, I think everyone knows here how long it took for legalization in so many areas across this country. You don't want to take steps backward on that.
No, I hear you. So reduce your exposure, make sure that you're not leaving yourself open to liability and all that kind of stuff. All right, Dilara, I'm gonna bounce it back to you.
All right, so we've already gotten a little bit into this question, but I want to know, what are the best ways to avoid getting flagged or violating social media platform rules? So obviously, number one, read the rules. I've heard that. Certain things like broccoli, apparently we might want to avoid excessive broccoli emojis, certain words we want to avoid. We've talked through that. We may not want to post products or should not post product or the plant itself. So what are other things that would get an account flagged that the folks should know on this line that we haven't already detailed? Christina, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I mentioned, try not to say the word cannabis on your posts, in texts, or be creative about how you do it. Like some people will do C emoji for like the insect, the bee, and then D. I do T, like a little teapot for THC. And I change it up because if you're using the same thing over and over again, they catch up. And sometimes people don't know, but also people know, they find a way. I always say cannabis is a weed, and it will continue to grow, whether they shut it down or not. It will always find a way. So people know. Also, using humor, I think, is a great way to be able to create the type of content that your audience can relate with, that is also safe and will not get your account flagged. So posting anything that says like BOGO, promos, buy this, come in, deal, those types of sales words will definitely get you flagged. I think Scott had mentioned, definitely don't post photos of flower, nugs, all of that, which is, you can, I've definitely gone through and done it, but I've also had videos flagged for it. So I would say, if you're interested in pushing the envelope and experimenting, don't do it on Instagram stories, because if you get flagged on stories, you get flagged and you can't. So now Instagram will give you a warning to say that you posted something that goes against their violation, and you have an opportunity to delete it so you can get your account like unwarned. But if it's a story, it's already expired after 24 hours. You can't delete it. So I didn't get shadow banned. I got like a slap on the wrist for 3 weeks right before 420. But every violation, I learned something new. And so I tried to share with others, and I kind of learned from others. You can delete a post, a picture post, you can delete an Instagram reel. So that's a safer place. And Instagram Reels is really how you're going to grow and reach an audience, because that's what they're pushing. That's what people are seeing. Don't use the word canna or weed in your handle. That is definitely, or in your email of whatever you're using to log in. And then other things that like how to avoid getting flagged and violating social media. I'd say like leverage content creators and influencers, leverage others who are in the space who might be a good brand advocate, a brand ambassador for you, who can talk about certain things in a way that you as a company, as a brand that is trying to sell, cannot. And I'll use an example. For example, 64 and Hope. here in Los Angeles. They work with several content creators that I know, and they're very small, under 10,000, but they are in Los Angeles. They are of the community. They're a positive force, and they create content going into the shop, sharing what they're doing and what they like about it. And so you're reaching their audience with less risk to you. And that's a great way for you to reach more people. Like I like to say, think of your Instagram like it's a website. If somebody doesn't know you and they're going to your page, what do they just need to know? And then you create some content to bring in new people. But otherwise, I'd say focus on the channels that you can really own, that you're not going to get flagged on. Your email list is a great way. I would say if you had to focus all of your resources into certain channels, I'd say your email list is the best one that you can own, because you own that information. You can communicate and say all of those words without being worried about getting shut down. YouTube is a fantastic channel. YouTube is owned by Google. Any video content that you create then also exists for Google SEO if anyone's trying to search, and will show up. And they don't flag for cannabis. You can't monetize on your YouTube channel. So me as a creator, if I created a YouTube channel, I have free reign to post my content and say what I want. But at this moment in time, I'm not able to monetize on it. As a brand, you wouldn't do that anyway, so that could be okay. And Twitter is good, but like I don't think you're going to reach your audience there. LinkedIn is excellent. LinkedIn has freely said that people are free to have conversations about the business of cannabis on LinkedIn. I think that's more of a professional place, but it's become like LinkedIn's almost the new Facebook, honestly. A lot of people are going there. And so also, especially if you're playing on TikTok at all, no smoking at all. Like I lit like a lighter in a bowl of lavender flowers for a brand, and they flagged that and said that was a no because it was showing any kind of smoking. So again, like if you're going to take risks, take small risks and know what can and can't be deleted. And if you do get a warning, just cool it. Just cool it for a couple weeks and don't post, and or post some extra safe content and wait it out. When I had my account basically slapped on the wrist, and so my content was no longer being shown to to anybody outside of my immediate followers. So all I had to do was wait it out and just post safe content, and then I was good. So the good thing is, before these channels would just shut your account down with no warning. Now they've put systems in place to give you a warning before, but that doesn't always happen. I know plenty of people who, to Savvy's point, have had, they've had hundreds of thousands of followers. They've built this entire community, and in an instant, it's gone. And it's heartbreaking. And you can try to build it back, but it'll never be the same. And so what a lot of people do now is you create backups for the backups. Which I think is a scam, because maybe these social media channels are making us all create more accounts so it shows growth, but that's just a theory. So create backup accounts. There was a question that was also, should you create a personal account for yourself as like the CEO or the head of the brand in addition to the company? Absolutely. Because you as a person, as a voice, has more freedom, and your audience will find you. So in cannabis, people know now there's just backups. So, 1, 2 backups are sufficient, occasionally posting to it so that people know that it exists, and just maintain it.
Thank you, Christina, for that. I'm just want to ask one quick follow-up. What is safe content for a cannabis business? What are some examples of what that might look like?
I mean, a lot of memes, honestly, that's what, like, memes, funny content, the things that I see, especially with like a TikTok and Instagram, like real type video. Like there's this one gal, her name's Cough Creative, and she posts this funny thing. She said, like, thank you to my lungs for handling the things that my mental health cannot. It went wild. People loved it because they could relate to that. They're like, yes, that's me. Doing events and non-consumption, showing a recap, memes that are just funny. People love cats. So I don't know why. People who like cannabis also like cats, and somehow that those two pieces of content go together really well. It's an interesting place. And I think, social media is just a tool. So think about it in terms of your entire content and marketing strategy. You as a business owner have so many things to do already. Social media shouldn't be something that you feel that you have to do and you have to post to. It is a tool and you should use it accordingly with the rest of your content marketing strategy. And if it's something that you hate doing, definitely hire somebody who knows what they're doing to do it for you, because it's worth it.
Thank you so much for that, Christina. I want to turn to you, Scott. You talked about strategies for violations on social media platforms. Is there one strategy you can tell us if folks have violated a platform's rules? What can they do? One thing that they can do in that post-violation phase?
Honestly, what we have found is if any of our posts violated the policy, Christina's 100% right. Like, your posts just stop showing up in people's news feeds, and you can't be searched again on the Instagram search tab. We've deleted the post, and after we've deleted the post, like, everything has gone back to normal. But the problem is, you don't want to become an account that continuously gets flagged. So you have to err on the side of caution. And pretty much everything Christina said, like from a backup account to the type of content and the type of words and the hashtags you shouldn't use, are all it's 100% spot on. So what we have found is, like, just deleting those posts has been our best approach. And then Instagram kind of leaves us alone specifically when we do cross that bridge of getting a policy violation. But honestly, after you deal with those policy violations, you learn what type of content you should not post. And as long as you're learning and not repeating the same mistakes, I guess, like life, you're usually pretty good. So my recommendation and what we do at Fresh Content Society is delete our posts that get flagged.
Perfect. Got that. All right. So Savvy, I want to turn to you. You work with some major brands, and I want to know, what are some of the keys to going viral on the internet?
Oh, well, I wish there was a specific recipe for going viral, but something that is helping now is trending sounds, but that's video content. So it's much more easier to go viral now with Reels or TikToks, mostly Reels or TikToks, but even now, YouTube Shorts are also a way to get that virality. If you see the video performing well on Instagram and TikTok, go ahead and download that same video without the watermark though. So you need to have the videos already exported and without anybody's mark on it, because everybody wants their own branding on their videos on the platform. So, but you can take that same video from Instagram or TikTok because the numbers perform well, and put it on YouTube Shorts and get that same type of reaction. So right now is making sure you look at the trending sounds in Reels and TikTok. They both give you the numbers. That can be also a trend that's happening that's connected to the sound that you can hop on. And honestly, that's been the best way that we've seen here lately in the social media world, ways to go viral. Before, you never knew if you just could make a video and not even think that particular content would go viral. But now it is much easier because they're doing it based on a trend.
Got it. Hop on that trend bandwagon. I want to open it up to the rest of our panelists. Scott, I know you've been behind some viral media campaigns and all of that. I want to hear from you. Christina, Barrett, if you all have anything to add on this as well. I know there may not be a recipe, but what can move our equity applicants and licensees in the right direction of making their content more viral than not viral?
Yeah, I'll jump in quick, and then Barrett, Christina, pass it off to you. I won't take up too much time, but Savvy's exactly right. Leveraging trends is definitely a great way to start integrating yourself into the algorithm on the For You page or the Explorer tab. You know, when you're creating content, right, there is no magic fairy dust. There's no silver bullet. It's authenticity, and it's not stock, and there has to be some relatability to it. And you know, just some quick tips for me to share with you guys, you know, that could help advance, you know, moving their content forward on social is, you know, in my opinion, is you have to tell a story. There has to be a beginning, there has to be the story, and then there has to be the end. And it has to be told in a socially relevant way. Um, and that could be, you know, delivered in 100 different styles and formats, right? That kind of people offer, whether it's a POV or it's a green screen or split screen or dual format or duetting or stitching or, you know, there's a million different ways to do it. But the most important thing is the first couple seconds of the video. Either you're hooking in the audience or you're not. And if you hook people in and you're telling an engaging story and that authenticity shines through, you're putting your best foot forward, and that's all you can ask for. So my recommendation, you know, in addition to leveraging trends, would be video hooks, telling a story, and authenticity when you're sharing that content.
I'll also say, don't be afraid to make content. I think that this constantly trying to chase the viral video, make stuff that will go viral, it will drive you crazy because you can't predict it. You can't make it up. I can sit here and I spent 5 hours editing one of the best videos yesterday on my phone, and it's definitely not going viral. And the one that I spent, you know, less than a half thought about and just threw up to some music that was trending has hit 1.4 million views and doubled my followers. So like, you never know. You just have to try things, and you need to do a mix of that type of content that is storytelling, that does have the beginning, middle, and end, and shares what you want, and a little mix of the funny stuff that's going to get people to come to your page and reach that target audience that you want. I'll also say, like, think about it this way. If you're trying to reach virality, the reasons things go viral isn't necessarily the reason that you want, because things that are controversial, things, what is called troll marketing, will absolutely help you go viral. But then you're dealing with troll marketing. My video that went viral was because I had so many people telling me the contents of my video and saying not so nice things, because everyone has an opinion. But that created lots of comments, lots of shares, and engagement, which is what continues to fuel the algorithm. So the algorithm wants engagement and shares. So the type of content that you can make that will entice people to comment, whether negative or positive, whether you like it or not, and to hit that share button. So like, likes are worth the least. If someone comments with an emoji, that's worth very little. People, they want comments that have like long, more than 4 or 5 words, sentences. And then the ultimate is if somebody saves your post or shares it out to something else. And Savvy mentioned to look for trending audio. And if you don't know how to do that, on Instagram specifically and in TikTok, if you go and you're flipping through reels and you go to the very bottom, you see the music where it's like spinning. If there's a little arrow in the corner that's trending up, you'll see that it's trending. And so you want to find the piece of audio that is trending and doesn't have a lot of uses yet. So something that's been used less than 10,000 times has potential to go viral. And I know this is a lot. I mean, this is a whole, trying to manage this in addition to running a business that is very challenging on its own is, like I mentioned, like it's a lot to get your mind around, and the rules and the features constantly change. And you can't, like, you have to like resign yourself to the fact that it is outside of our control, and we're just playing that game, and we're just making stuff to feed the beast and hope that it works in the overall content strategy.
And I want to add to that what Christina said. She's spot on. And I think a lot of the people here realizing this is a lot more work than they probably thought it would be. but it's true. It is. And one of the things she hit on it because you want to really disrupt the audience. You want to disrupt them. There's a book I read called Disrupt You, and it just talked about marketing to cause disruption. But remember, we started out this thing talked about compliance. So she mentioned about, you know, the troll market out there. It's a lot of people out there who are looking to start something. There's a fine line. There's a very fine line. She's right. She's absolutely right. You want to get something to where that little troll market, because it'll boost you, but it can also get you boosted. So if you know what I mean. So the thing is, you gotta make sure that you walk that line. Yes, you can get involved in the little troll thing to get people sharing and liking and saving your comments, but you don't want to get emotional. And I hope I'm clear on that. Somebody may say something to you that's very disrespectful, very mean to you, but you can't get into that, you know, back and forth with them to where you're going to now say something, one, that can get them upset with you to try to report you for something to someone, or to say something that just can get you in trouble because you just shouldn't have said it on social media. So you got to be very careful with that, but she's absolutely right. You want to have some type of disruption to get people interested enough to pay attention to you over everybody else out there, but you got to be careful with it.
Barrett, as you're speaking, I want to hear, is there and I think there is, because I've heard of some podcasts that have, you know, podcast clips that have gone viral, or there's some podcast clips and podcasts with certain guest speakers. I'm thinking of a few right now that, you know, are very well known in the mass conscious. So is there something different we need to know about the podcast space apart from disruption,
Well,
going viral or being very popular?
Well, it's the same thing. Disruption is key. I mean, like, the people in all forms of media, television, radio, film, print, whatever, the controversy is what sparks a lot of debate. So it sparks a lot of people talking. But a lot of people do this by design, knowing what they can get away with, knowing that it's going to cause trouble for them. But they know, and you've heard the expression in entertainment, any publicity is good publicity. So they're looking at it that way. Everybody doesn't have that luxury. Everybody doesn't have that luxury to just say, hey, I'm just going to start something controversial. Like, you're starting out a cannabis business, you can't do something that's going to get your butt in trouble. You just can't do it. And so you just because you see a Joe Rogan do it on his podcast, well, you're not Joe Rogan. So keep in mind, Joe Rogan was a celebrity before his podcast. Joe Rogan was a controversial comedian before his podcast. Controversy was part of who he was already. So you take someone who is not as controversial. Look, I should say, we remember Kathy Griffin because Kathy Griffin was up there, but then she got controversial and went down. So these things can happen. And these are people who have made millions. You're not in that space right now. So just be careful when you're if you're doing a podcast on this subject. Yes, like I said, the guidelines are totally different when it comes to podcasting versus social media. You can say a lot of different things. You can do a lot of different things on your podcast that you can't do on social media, but that doesn't mean run amok.
Thanks for that, Barrett. And I'm feeling like you were reading my mind as you mentioned Joe Rogan's podcast. I didn't name him, but you did. You were reading my mind, Barrett. Reading it.
I hope he sends me a check. But
Christina, you wanted to jump in, and then I was going to go back to Brad.
Yeah, I did want to pop in about podcasts because there's several different ways to go about it. So I do have my own podcast. I was also on someone's podcast who owns a cannabis company, and she started it so that she could learn, and hers is more industry B2B, not necessarily a consumer. But it's created great brand awareness for her brand. It's created platforms and opportunities for her to reach out to people. Also, if the thought of hosting your own podcast feels really overwhelming, because that in itself is a whole other job and business on its own, you can also consider, what type of podcast can you support? Can you sponsor? Who are the podcast hosts that align with your product, align with your brand, and that it would make sense for them to talk about your product on your behalf, so that you don't have to feel like you are the only one like trying to create a media podcast company to promote your product. I think, there's so many wonderful podcasts with niche audiences, and finding the right person, finding the right podcast, the right influencer, creator, whoever it might be, who can support your brand is a great way to spend that energy.
So I want to hop in. You guys are all saying things that are really, really interesting. As I understand, it's possible for a brand to get into a little bit of trouble, and maybe you want to reinvent that. Maybe you want to pivot a little bit. What can we do with social media or our other digital tools, podcasting or text or emails, or what can we do to help sort of build our brand back up, or maybe pivot? Let's say we started heading into a direction where we're known for something we don't really want to be known for. How do you use these tools to clean that up and to rebuild?
Well, one thing I can talk about is, at least with media, is first of all, you want to engage with people. That the key to this is really engagement. If you're not engagement, you're not going to go viral. You're not going to get people following. You're not going to get anything if you're engaged. But you can steer the engagement, and you can just ask a question in a positive direction, and opposite than what you were talking about, Brad. So that way that you can get them talking about a certain subject. And then you can start gearing that, and you can then take that question, ask another question. You can build on these questions in a positive direction to make it go that way. And Christina talked about memes. You can have memes that go into that positive direction to take in that the way you want it to go. You are the great thing. I've been in media a long time. I'm an old man, but the thing is, when I was started in media, if you wanted to be on a radio show or a TV show or something, a producer had to think you were interesting enough to give you like 2 minutes of time. There was no social media when I started in media. Now, media is literally at your fingertips. You can control it. So if it's going in a way you don't think it should go, don't sit there and wallow in self-pity. Change the direction. You have that control now, and it's a big difference. Thank you, Christine. It's a big difference in the way it used to be. And once you can understand it, you are in control of it. You won't get caught up in, oh, they're talking bad about me. Who cares? Change it. So that's how I look at it.
That's great. Scott, how about you? What do you think?
Apologies, I was on mute.
No worries. No worries.
I mean, Barrett's 100% spot on. It's all about engagement. And, I don't play on any other platforms besides social media. And so I live and breathe, I live and die by engagement. And if you have a community and you can take your time and build yourself a community, there's nothing more impactful from a marketing standpoint in order to retain customer. That's why, Christina as well on the email list. That's powerful, to be able to generate that sort of first party data, to be able to connect with followers in a meaningful way. It's something that's irreplaceable. Brands, everybody is on the hunt to build community, and organic social media has never been more important. And with cannabis specifically, preventing being restricted for paid media, right? Your only choice is organic, right? Your only choice is community building. Your only choice is to go out and try to, social media to me is like a game of inches, right? It's you're lucky to go viral, right? Christina generating that big hit of a video, and like Savvy said, like your chances today are higher than ever to go viral, right? But you can't count on that. So what you have to count on is building community. And that goes all the way back to engagement, to Barrett's original point on what he was referring to as being actively involved in the community. So I'm 100% aligned on that front. And I think if you could build community, that's the secret to any success in any marketing fashion.
Just to follow up on that community building, one of the biggest ways, especially if you're new to the social media channels, to build a community is to join other communities. But to do that, you need to know who your buyer is going to be. And we like to do buyer personas. We know 3 different types of buyers that we want to target, and then you go where they are. One great tool that we like to use is Facebook groups. You can join a Facebook group. They have groups for everything. I even checked, they have some, they don't, it's no use of cannabis, but also just because a group has cannabis users doesn't necessarily mean that those are the groups that your buyer is in. You're gonna have to look at the value base for your brand and find buyers that align with that and find groups that align with that type of buyer profile. So that's going to include their demographics. Where do they live? What kind of work do they do? And why they would work with your brand or why they would buy from your brand, and build community that way by engaging in other communities, right? So that's one of the biggest things we do. And then another one, I'm going to circle back to what Scott was saying about storytelling. It's a great way to build community when they can connect with a story. And it's because it's a brand, it's going to be the brand story or the values that the brand honors. And you're going to craft stories that engage with that audience. Back to engagement, it all matters, but that's a great way if you're new, is to join communities where your buyers would be.
And I'd like to add too, in the terms of community and engagement, it's people on social media don't want to hear from a brand. They want to hear from a person, and that's authenticity. And to create meaningful, authentic engagement means you really have to put in the time. Even for myself, participating in Facebook groups, even in Reddit, in other places, I have to show up authentically as myself and offer valuable information. It's not just me going in trying to promote promote my products or my sales or whatever it is I'm trying to do, because that's very not allowed. So it's how do you participate and provide value? And that takes a lot of effort. That's a lot of time. And so you can't be all things to all people, and you can't be on all channels because we're not superhuman and it's impossible to do it all.
If I could just follow up on that little point. So you're a busy operator, you're manufacturing, you're retailing, you're distributing, whatever you're doing, and you got a brand that you're trying to get out there. Let's say I just worked 12 hours and I got 10 minutes before I'm heading out the door. What's one thing I should do on social media?
I'm going to step in right there. You wouldn't post at that moment. You would schedule a post for tomorrow.
Okay, good. Christina.
Okay, this is what I would do. And I started doing this, and it worked really well. I would just flip the camera on myself and just post a really honest, very real reaction. Hey, what's up? I just finished a really long day. I've been doing all of these things. We have all this going on, and pick one thing to say, have a point, something inspiring, something cool. And that's real. And the moments, the types of videos that I post of myself sitting here in this camera with no makeup, nothing on, and in my pajamas, holding my cat, are the ones that people respond to the most. The ones I put the most effort in sometimes get the least. And that's why I was saying, it doesn't have to be very polished. If you have 5 minutes, that's one piece of content. Even you sitting in a hammock, relaxing, showing you had a really long day and now you're consume, don't show you're consuming, you can imply that's a piece of content. Right
on. Savvy, since you brought it up, now at the end of the day, don't post then. What are some better times that I could post or schedule a post for?
Well, the first, you want to look at when your audience engages, and each platform does let you know based on your trend when your audience is most engaged. So you want to schedule a post for that time. But as a general, and this changes, but something that you can do is 10 a.m., noon, 2 p.m., right? But for some people, they have
10 a.m., noon, and 2 p.m.?
Yes. But
okay.
some people have later audiences. So you always want to go and look at your analytics to see when your audience most engaged. When we first start brands out, we try those times first to see when they're most engaged, and then we alter the times based on the engagement.
And so you went on your platform and you looked at the analytics and it showed you when they were most engaged.
It tells you the day and the times.
Oh, that's fabulous. Barrett, what's best time to get a podcast out there? When do you schedule yours?
Well, it's funny because with podcasts, it doesn't really matter to me because people listen to podcasts when it's convenient for them.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I mean, I hear people give ideas of when you should put it out, but I don't subscribe to that, because if you're commuting to work and that's when you want to listen to the podcast, then that's when you're going to do it. If you're working out, jogging, if you want to do it, that's when you're going to do it. I can't control that. So all I can control is that I'm consistent in putting out content. And that's what I tell. So if you're going to put it out Friday at noon, make sure every Friday at noon, that's when you're putting something out. Most people never listen to it when it's just put out. Like I said, they listen to it when it's convenient for them, but consistency is the key.
Do you have those analytics? Do you know when your customers listen to your podcast? Do you have that information?
I pay attention more to how long they listen and what devices they're listening on and what area of the world they're listening.
Can you share a little bit about what devices they're listening on and where in the world
most people are listening on their phones or on their laptops, and a lot of them are listening in their cars. A lot of them are listening in their cars. And depending on like what your subject matter is, who your audience is, depending on what they may be in different countries. I have people listening in Germany. I have some in South Africa listening to podcasts. It just depends on, where they are and if your subject matter is engaging enough to them. And kind of going back to something that Christina said, I could have a guest on I had a guest on my podcast who was from a country in Africa. And actually, I was a guest on there. So now I have an audience in that region because of that. So it's the same way when you're talking about if you do a podcast on cannabis, you guest on other people's or get them to be a guest on yours, and you can attract those audiences that way.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. Scott, what are your thoughts on timing or analytics on when you should be posting your content?
I mean, everybody has brought up valid points, and the only thing that I can add to that is the best time to post is when you have something really great to post about. I also don't love the idea of just quantity. I'm not a huge quantity person. I'm more about the quality. So there's no bad time to post if you have something great to talk about, first and foremost. But Savvy's 100% right in terms of, platforms giving you those insights into days and times of optimization of when your fans are most engaged with you on those particular platforms. So I don't really have much value to add outside of that brilliant statement, besides there's no bad time to post if you have something great to post about.
And if you guys don't mind, what are some of your favorite, to give a shout out to your colleagues, what are some of your favorite posts out there that you've seen on any of these different mediums that we're talking about tonight?
Like, what are some of our favorite accounts that we... Yeah,
some favorite Instagram post or a story or something on Facebook, or Barrett, maybe one of your favorite podcasts, cannabis podcasts out there that's not yours.
I think I'll go first if you guys don't mind. Herb Buddies, I think, is pretty good. I think those guys just do a good job. They're like more of the comedic duo, but they get flagged a lot and they're crazy. But that's the type of content I personally enjoy.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. And Barrett, sorry, you were trying to share, but your audio was off.
I actually don't have any favorite cannabis podcast I listen to, so that I don't have one on that one for you.
Hey, when you're at the top, sometimes it's hard to see the other guys, right?
And Barrett, what about just podcasts in general? What are some of your favorite podcasts, and what do you think makes those podcasts successful? What are some insights we can draw?
You mean other than mine, right? So
Barrett, I'm sending your check in the mail.
Yes, but I like the ones that really get people engaged and teach them things. There's one called Twins Talk It Up. They're twin brothers, and they talk about speaking, and they get other people who want to be in the speaking profession, and they just talk to them about different tips. And now they've pivoted. Now they're getting into the tech world, so they're talking Twins Talk Tech. So they're pivoting it. But I like that one. There's another one that I know of about parenting. It's called the Parenting 411, and she does her podcast audio and video. So she's attracting two different audiences. And it's a lot of them, but the main thing I'm getting is that they get engagement from people. They form communities and they get people to engage with them in those communities. And one of the things they do is they can find content based on the engagement they get in their groups from the community. So they ask you as a community member, hey, what do you think we should talk about? And you give them a subject matter. Well, guess what? Now you feel a part of the show, because you have contributed something to the show, and they may even mention your name on there, who knows, but it's still something that it makes people feel engaged. So I like those types of podcasts to get people engaged. And I also don't like it just all buttoned up. I like them to have a little fun with it. I always advise people, when you're doing a podcast, don't do too much editing. If you make a mistake, let it fly, because we're human. Humans make mistakes, so it's no big deal.
And oh yeah, go ahead, Savvy.
I was just gonna say my favorite account is Ease, because it's very colorful, and they use things that are not direct to do their messaging. And sometimes it's just everyday stuff, but it's colorful. So you get looped in, like they did National Donut Day and then talked about donuts being with deliveries, or and but the picture is the donut, and who doesn't love donuts?
I mean, yeah, you get drawn in. We got Christina drawing them in with cats. You got Ease drawing with donuts. Not to be oblivious, we're about technology a lot on this particular program. We do a lot of sort of tech tools work. What are there any new technologies, new ways to reach consumers that we're not thinking about, that we're not talking about? Are you guys hearing anything? It's okay if the answer is no, but just want to put it out there in case there's something that you guys are excited about.
You guys want to think about it. I'll also add in my recommendation for a really good account that I think you should follow that's worth checking out. Sunday School is a great brand to follow on all of their social media channels. They're successful on TikTok and Instagram. They did a 420 runway show in New York that landed them in Vogue. They do TikTok really well, despite being a cannabis brand. And so they're very creative. They have like clothing brands, but when they try to show smoking, I saw one where like they were using a bougainvillea flower, and it's like, what this is, but it was a flower, so it's not getting flagged and it's not being caught. So Sunday School is a great one to check out. I'd say everyone's talking about ChatGPT right now, and I think that can be helpful to help you write your captions, but it'll never be as personal and from the heart. It's maybe you can use it to help you research information or get an outline of something going, but don't just rely on it for your content, because it's a tool. Again, just like social media, it's a tool that you can use to help you, but ultimately it's not going to help you connect deeply with your customers.
Yeah. And one piece of tech that I found, Brad, is something called Synthesia, and it allows you to do AI. You can have a spokesperson for your company. So they have different people on there who are just basically, I guess, models or whatever. You can put in the text and they will say what you have said, and it looks like a person talking. So you can, and then they have backgrounds, so you can have background looking like you're in an office or wherever. And it's like, yeah, it's scary, but it's where we are these days. And,
does it really look like looks like a person talking?
Oh, most definitely.
Really? Okay.
No, it doesn't look like it is a person. It's just
it is a person.
They took a person and they had them. You could actually set up to use your own image if you want to, and you can have it so that your own words can come out. I'm working on something right now where I can do podcasts with that. So for people that don't want to put themselves on camera all the time. So.
Wow. And Barrett, you know we need that name in the chat. If you can spell that
I
out
will,
for
I will,
us.
I will put it in there. Let's give me a second. I'll put it in
Yes,
there.
and for all of our panelists, for the Instagram pages, the handles you all have shared, your favorite pages, if you can just pop those in the chat as well. We also want to continue to encourage our audience to pop your questions in the Q&A box. We want to hear from you. I think this panel is doing a great job, but I haven't seen any questions, which must mean that we're answering all the questions that you all have. But if you have a question that you have not already asked, we really want you to pop that into the chat. Brad, did you want to jump in for our next question?
Yeah, I just had just kind of an old school marketing question. How many impressions do you guys think that people need to see before they, as they get through that continuum of not knowing who you are and then being annoyed to, oh, there's something interesting here. I kind of like these guys. You know what? I might go in there and buy that product. How many times you got to hit them over the head before they walk in your door or they click on your products online or for retail?
We normally say at least 7 touch points before they'll make a decision. That is very a traditional standpoint on it, but usually at least 7 touch points before they will make a decision to purchase with you. At each step, they may get closer, but also something that accelerates is social proof. So if they can get social proof or reviews or testimonials, they're more likely to make a decision quicker and cut down the 7 touch points.
Got it. Interesting. So when you say that, do you mean sort of individuals that they connect with or like a celebrity endorsement or an influencer? Or
All of those things could play a
Yeah.
role. All of those things could play a role. It's just like kind of like Amazon. And I'm not sure if a lot of cannabis companies do this where they have a testimonial section on their website, but it's just like Amazon. Before you purchase, you're going to go down to those reviews. And if there's video, it's better to see who has used this and if it was to their liking, right? And now, because most of the social medias are moving towards an SEO standpoint, they're going and searching. Now, if you have cannabis in your company name, you're less likely to come up in those searches, but people are still searching for brands that they find online and seeing if anyone has used that product before.
Got it. Savvy, Scott, Christina, Barrett, you all have worked with some huge brands that are out there, global brands. And I want to know, what is their secret sauce? What are their lessons learned? What are some things we can share with our social equity and applicants and licensees that you all have learned or that you've learned that these big brands do that someone who's emerging in the space of business, they may not have knowledge of? So share with us some of this, share some of the secret sauce with us. Of course, you don't have to mention the brands, their names or the businesses, but I want to hear and leverage some of that experience that you all have.
Well, I've worked with people and brands that the one thing that I am attracted to with them, and because don't get me wrong, it's not everybody within the brand, but the people that I'm attracted to, I want to work with, integrity. I'm drawn to integrity. When people show me that they have integrity, we can do business and we can grow and we can do a lot of things together. If you show me the opposite, I pull away. I don't trust you. I don't want to do business with you. And I just quickly run away. So integrity is what I see in people that I want to do business with, that I want to stay affiliated with.
I'm going to say with the brands that I've worked with and even the brands that I engage with on social media, being responsive, reacting, saying thank you, even something as simple as just that double tap like that somebody shared. I think one of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm really excited about a brand, I got their product or I did something and I made this cool video and I shared it and crickets. I see that they saw it, but crickets. And that doesn't leave a good taste in my mouth. There's a lot of brands that are really big, but like I might not like or respect because I don't feel like they're not giving any love back. And it doesn't matter if somebody has a lot of followers or 5 followers, because the number of followers does not equate to dollars spent. Like it takes a lot of effort for someone to go in and spend $1, but like just simply the act of saying thank you and acknowledging your community goes a very long way, and it will get somebody in the door.
Scott, what about you? What's the secret sauce from big brands?
Here's the reality. If you're a big brand, you have brand equity. And it's about 100 times easier to build a community around brands that have brand equity. But their secret is resources, and having enough resources to be able to support all the different functionalities and skill sets that it requires to be great on social media. It's impossible to be a left brain, right brain. There's very, very few people that are Swiss Army knives. It sounds like a few people on this call, if not all of them, are Swiss Army knives, which is rare, to be analytical and creative. So I don't think there is secret. I don't think there is a secret sauce. I think it's resources. And I think it's finding the right people with the right skill sets in order to be able to support those resources in order to be great. And, unfortunately for smaller businesses, or fortunately for bigger businesses, they have enough budget to do so. And I think that's reality.
Thanks for that, Scott. We had a question in the chat about SEO. Savvy, I think you were mentioning SEO. So for someone who does not know what that stands for, search engine optimization, can you say a little bit more about that? And then I know there was some discussion earlier about YouTube and how that will optimize in the Google search engine. So if we can just kind of touch that conversation one more time, just in case someone missed it.
Okay, so it absolutely stands for search engine optimization. And basically that's going into Google and putting in a search. You're looking for whatever you want to type in and find it. And now, instead of just using Google, people are using TikTok. TikTok was the first one I really saw, and Pinterest have been used for search engine optimization. But now, because of TikTok's popularity, Instagram would like to move more in that same direction. So that means that hashtags, they are not as heavy as actually what you put in the caption. So now everything that you put in the caption is a keyword. So being aware of that, how to relax, people will type that into TikTok, best ways to relax, how to relax, or different phrases. You need to be aware of those phrases too when you're generating your content and writing the captions. So back to the AI thing, you have to be mindful of that. And it's not necessarily going to be mindful of that for you. It's just typing a caption based on something you said, when you also need to be thinking about, how can I optimize this for someone to find it? So, you want to be sure that your captions, where used to be captions could be really short. You're not going to maximize your reach by having a short caption. You don't always have to have a long drawn out caption unless it's necessary. But when you are doing your caption, you want to think about, if I were going to go to Google to find something, what would I put in to find this? And that's how you want to think about it.
All right. So let's say you guys have got a couple extra, you got an hour or two on a Sunday before you're starting the week, or whenever your downtime is. Maybe just sitting down with a piece of paper, you're on your computer, whatever. How do you map out the week for social media posts? And are there calendaring tools, or do you set alarms for yourself? How do you manage doing this on the regular, keep a regular sort of rhythm and pace to doing this?
For myself, I have a lot going on. So I manage my newsletter. I have a podcast. I am a content editor for a digital publication. I do events here. I got a lot. So you can be very organized. You can have everything planned out. There's later.com that you can schedule things on. Instagram just announced that you can start scheduling posts and stories. That's a way you can do it, where you batch all your content, think about it at the beginning of the week, schedule it all out. I know that, I generally know what topics or what podcast topics I'm going to cover in the upcoming weeks. So then I'll create content and publish and post it then. That's also very type A. Not everybody can do that. And I don't feel, I got to a point also in my business life and management where I aspire to that, but the reality is I can't even keep my calendar up to date because things change and pivot so quickly. So I'm at a point where I'm consistent with my newsletter posts, with my podcast, with things that need to go out on a certain time and creating content to support it. But other supplemental content posting, like Brad, you mentioned, I'm tired, I got 5 minutes, what do I do? That kind of stuff, I just post when I have it. I let go of the schedule. I let go of the algorithm and what it's trying to tell me to do, because we're all human at the end of the day and we can't be slaves to social media. So do what makes you feel good and gives you the energy to continue doing it. If it's creating a calendar and scheduling it because that gives you peace of mind, great. If you want to use my willy-nilly method of hybrid method, where, sometimes I'm like, oh, I have a fun idea at 8 p.m. I'll just throw it up and see what happens, because you never know. And you can't control the beast that is Meta and social media because you can't predict it. And like another note I wanted to add to, another secret sauce is, especially being in cannabis, especially being in social equity, the name of the game is pivot. Know how to pivot, change constantly. Don't get caught up in what's going to hang you up and things that you can't change. That is probably one of the hardest things. And also know that money and dollars and currency are not your only, is not the only currency that you can use. There's who do you know? Who can you trade? What can you barter? I say this a lot, that the pandemic reminded me that there are a lot of ways to get the things that you need, even if you have very little resources. And even if you're not a big brand that has lots of resources and money to spend on it, you can be creative and find ways.
So I don't know, I wouldn't call this type A, but because it's an agency, we cannot do that. We plan 30 days out. We have to know ahead of plan. For some companies, we have a communications plan and then we build out backwards. So sometimes I may know what's happening 6 months ahead, but listen, things change. And when they do, we just add it. We don't change the other things that we already planned. We continue to do those. And this is just added benefit. It's like sprinkling sugar on it. Like it's just a little extra. So nope, I can't do that. But also, if you do not use Later or any of those type of platforms, Facebook, the Meta Business Suite is free, and it does let you do Facebook and Instagram. It lets you do Reels and Stories. You can schedule them as far out as you want. If you do it if you try to schedule within the Instagram app, and you do a post, let's say you scheduled a post, and then you want to schedule another post, it's going to post that post now, because it's not really equipped to go further than 1 day ahead inside the phone. But if you do it through their business suite, you can schedule out 6 months if you want, no problem. But yes, we have to use a more systematic approach because we have multiple clients, and we want to think ahead, because there's some things you're going to know, but we also do things on the fly as well. We just add it to the program.
Thank you for that. Now, we have had a time tonight. This has been fantastic. I've learned so much. I know we've all learned so much about social media. And you know what? We want to check in with our panelists, our subject matter experts after this. So if you have not already, please, panelists, pop your information into the chat for those who want to follow up. We have had so much great knowledge, and we know some folks may want to get in touch with you. So I will ask on everyone's behalf, please pop your websites, your email addresses into the chat. And as we close, I want to end with, what else should social equity licensees and applicants in Los Angeles know? So leave us with one takeaway. We have about 5 minutes left. This is going to be the order. I'm going off the order of my screen. I'm going to start with Scott. Then I want to hear from Barrett. Then I want to hear from Christina, and I want to round it off with Savvy. What is the one piece of advice you want to leave our community with? Scott.
Oh man, that's a big ask, Dr. D, but I think I can deliver. I think the number one, takeaway that everyone can take from today's session is authenticity and engagement. While creating content and social media, I forgot who mentioned it earlier on the call or during this webinar, but people want to hear from people on social media, not from businesses. So authenticity is the most important takeaway for today.
Okay, for me, the thing is to build a presence and be where people can't ignore you. One of the things that I always look at the comedian Kevin Hart. I tell people, I say, I don't care if you think Kevin Hart is funny or not, but you're not going to ignore him. He's everywhere, and that's by design. And you need to think the same way. Make sure you have a presence everywhere. Stop looking for people and make sure that people can find you. So that's all I got.
I'll say, don't get caught up, don't get hung up on the algorithm, how unfair it can be. And if you're too tired to post and what you think you should, or the schedules of posting or scheduling something, or you have to post at this time and this time. I think those are all guidelines. Those are all great tips to use, but don't feel like you have to stick to it. We are pioneers, we are renegades, just purely in being in this industry. And you don't have to do things the way that everybody else has done them before. And the rules are very different in cannabis than they are for other mainstream brands. So get creative.
And the thing that I want to say is there's power in proximity. So build those relationships, collaborate, and partner. Like there's so many ways to leverage your resources and gain access that when you're working together with other communities, then you can get your message out.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much to our subject matter experts. We have learned so much about social media, the do's, the don'ts, the secret sauce, the not so secret sauce, the hard work that is involved in this process, and to not use, don't, what did we call it earlier? Don't just post and pray. So Scott, wow, that really, someone else another week when we talked about media and technology talked about not spraying and praying. So we are just learning to really have some intentionality and authenticity behind those posts. So again, we want to thank you, and we want to thank you, our audience, for your questions, your engagement, and for attending this Beachside Chat that is offered by the City of Los Angeles Department of Cannabis Regulation. Or for those that are watching the replay, thank you so much for watching the replay. This webinar recording will be found on DCR's website at cannabis.lacity.org. If you have any questions on accessing your account, please email dcr.sep@lacity.org. Thanks again for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. And here's to all those hashtags and going viral. Thank you and have a great night. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.